Welcome back to Shakesyear. We are working on Macbeth, and today we get to hear from Macbeth in Act 3, Scene 1. But yesterday we were in Act 2, Scene 3, and there is an Act 2, Scene 4, so we gotta do a little bit of catching up. So, things that have happened. Macbeth killed Duncan. Oh, craziness. And then when Duncan's body was found the next day, Macbeth killed the two men who had been standing guard the night before in a fit of passion, so because he was also framing them for his murder. So everybody in the castle is all up in arms about it, and Macbeth and his wife are putting on a good show of not knowing what happened, even though they're the ones that brought about Duncan's death. And Duncan's sons, Malcolm and Donalbain, have gone one to England and one to Ireland, so that hopefully one of them can remain safe, because they think that whoever murdered their dad is probably going to come after them now. So in Act 2, Scene 4, it's a scene between Ross and an old man, and mostly they're talking about how weird last night was, and like that Duncan's horses ate each other and all sorts of weird things. And then Macduff comes in and he lets them know that the two brothers have gone to opposite places, and Ross is like, "Ooh, then that means that Macbeth is probably going to become king." And they're like, "Yeah, he's being coronated now." And I believe it's Ross goes to see it, and Macduff just goes home, like you do. So by the time we get to Act 3, Scene 1, Macbeth is king. He's been coronated, and we start out the scene, though, actually with Banquo, because remember, Banquo was there, and he had been wanting to chat with Macbeth about the things that the sister said. These things are still very clear in his mind, but they never really got a chance to connect about what the sister said. So Act 3, Scene 1 starts with a brief moment. It's not long enough to be a monologue for this project, but anyway, Banquo gets a brief moment on stage by himself to talk about the fact that he sort of suspects that Macbeth had a hand in Duncan's murder. But then he also remembers that he is supposed to be the father of a line of kings. So if all of the prophecies in regard to Macbeth came true, then the prophecy in regard to him that his children will be kings is probably also likely to come true. But then Macbeth and Lady Macbeth and some other people come in, and they're like, "We're going to have a solemn feast tonight, and Banquo, please, please, please be there." And he's like, "Yep, I will, but I'm going to go ride my horse for a little while first." And they're like, "Oh, where are you going?" He's like, "I'm just riding around for a bit." And they're like, "Are you taking your son with you?" And he's like, "Yeah, me and Fleance are going to go and ride our horses for a bit." And he's like, "Okay, well, have fun, but be back by 7, because that's when we're having dinner." And Banquo's like, "Okay, cool." And almost everybody leaves except for Macbeth and a servant. And Macbeth says to the servant, "Are those guys that I wanted to talk to right outside?" And the servant says, "Yes." And Macbeth says, "Bring them before us." To be thus is nothing but to be safely thus. Our fears in Banquo stick deep, and in his royalty of nature reigns that which would be feared. 'Tis much he dares, and to that dauntless temper of his mind he hath a wisdom that doth guide his valor to act in safety. There is none but he, whose being I do fear, and under him my genius is rebuked, as it is said Mark Antony's was by Caesar. He chid the sisters when they first put the name of king upon me, and bade them speak to him. Then, prophet-like, they hailed him father to a line of kings. Upon my head they placed a fruitless crown, and put a barren scepter in my grip, thence to be wrenched with an unlineal hand, no son of mine succeeding. If 't be so, for Banquo's issue have I filled my mind. For them, the gracious Duncan, have I murdered. Put rancors in the vessel of my peace only for them, and mine eternal jewel given to the common enemy of man, to make them kings, the seeds of Banquo kings. Rather than so, come fate into the list, and champion me to the utterance. Who's there? And the servant in the mask. Now go to the door and stay there till we call. And the servant leaves. Was it not yesterday we spoke together? So yeah, sorry, there's lots of entering and exiting during that little speech. But what he's saying, he sends the servant away, and then in his moment by himself, he's like, Banquo scares me, because he knows that there is this prophecy that the sisters told us about, and he could undo me, because if he shares these prophecies with other people, and or he probably suspects that I'm the one that did it, so word could get out that I killed Duncan because of Banquo. So he's a threat to me, not to mention the fact that these sisters said that his children were going to be kings, not my children. My children aren't going to be kings. So I, in fact, if they're true, I just killed the king so that Banquo's kids could be king, not mine. Like, I did all of this, and I put myself through all this stress, and I murdered him, and I've corrupted my soul so that Banquo's kids can be kings. He's like, no, rather than that, I've got a plan. So then these two random guys come in, and tomorrow we're going to find out what these random guys are all about. So I will see you then for that. Mwah.